There we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome. We're going to give everybody a couple minutes to jump on before we get started. Hope everybody's had a wonderful start to their 2023. You know, it's been busy around here. Always exciting, never boring. All right. I know we have a lot going on. I see everybody ticking on here. So let's get rocking right about now. Hey everybody, my name is Christy Weeks. I am the Brand and Digital Media Manager for Harmony Foundation, and welcome to the 2023 Harmony webinar series. We have such a special presentation today. It is a 2-hour webinar. I am so excited. We've had topics over the past that everybody was like, oh, we need another hour of that. It would have been great to have more detail. Today's your day. We've got a great topic, a fabulous speaker, and 2 hours of information. So today we welcome Dr. Joanne Baum with how Brainspotting can positively impact a person's recovery. So I'm going to briefly go over a few things for anybody who's new. If you are new, welcome. Harmony Foundation is on a 43-acre campus up in the Rocky Mountain National Park. We have been in business for over 53 years, and we are a residential rehab that offers comprehensive treatment for adults and their family members. We do believe that long-term recovery from alcohol and other drugs is possible. So at every level of our organization, our staff work together to create a community of recovery support, although it could be considered a sport in some areas. We have detox, we have IOP programs, we have a fabulous alumni program, and of course residential. So if you need any additional information about our programs, you can head over to our website at harmonyfoundationinc.com, or you can call our admissions staff at 866-686-7867. At this point, I realize that I have not turned on the chat box yet, and I will just momentarily so everybody can pop on and say hi. Couple of reminders. Again, this is a 2-hour webinar. It is recorded, and in order to receive your 2 CEUs, I need you to be involved and on this webinar for 1 hour and 45 minutes of the 2 hours. We do have a system that tracks the time, so please be aware of that. Couple of things. Your certificate will come by email. You do not necessarily have to fill out the survey to receive that certificate. I would appreciate it if you did, because we love your feedback. But I will have your certificates to you by the end of day Friday the 20th. So give me a couple days to get those all pulled together. Again, there is an evaluation at the end. We would love your certificate from me. Please check your junk email, since that's where my emails tend to go. They end up in everybody's junk, spam folders, whatever. So take a look around. If you can't find it, give me a shout. Happy to help you. So again, today our webinar is presented by Dr. Joanne Baum. She's with Support for Families. She is a PhD, LCSW, and a CAS, and has been in private practice since 1981. She is licensed in Colorado, Florida, and Indiana as a licensed clinical social worker. Her PhD is in social welfare, a multidisciplinary approach to social work. In addition to clinical work, Dr. Baum has taught at Central Michigan University and 2 community colleges in California. Joanne has a co-clinical director was a co-clinical director at the Height, Joanne, is that correct?
Yeah,
I got it wrong. I'm sorry? Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic, detox projects from 1981 to 83. Joanne has written 4 books on cocaine, marijuana, and 2 parenting books based on her theory, Respectful Parenting. Dr. Baum has spoken at conferences and provided training for professionals and paraprofessionals throughout the country on a variety of subjects. She believes that all people have the ability to heal from the inside out. Dr. Baum has been trained as a family mediator, a divorce coach, and a certified brain spotting therapist. Dr. Baum has been doing telehealth since 2014 and find it's very effective in allowing people to engage in therapy from the comfort of their homes or offices. And she works with individuals as well as couples. If you'd like any more information on our fabulous presenter today, you can head on over to supportforfamilies.com. Christy's having trouble reading this year. It's on the to-do list to clean that up. But we want to thank her for taking the time today to be our presenter. And with that, I'm going to turn on the chat box and I am going to turn over this entire presentation over to her. So stay tuned. We're getting going.
Okay, now I'm going to figure out how to share the screen. 1 second. I had this right here. Okay. Oh, but that's blocking me. Hold on.
That's okay.
I'm going to choose the full screen, choose screen and slideshow. Share screen, choose from the beginning.
Everybody, while she's sorting this out, chat box
Right,
is up and going.
Okay.
So let us know where you are.
Okay, so one quick tech question. When I'm putting this up now, can you see it? And I can't get to the chat box with this up.
You don't need to worry about the chat box. I've got the chat box covered. So what I can't see your screen right now. So
oh, you can't.
No, go to your more tab.
Hold on.
That's okay.
Sorry, folks.
No worries. Everybody's popping in from Colorado to Georgia to Idaho, Maryland. Hi, everybody. Okay. New Orleans. Columbus.
So, it says you cannot share screen while the other participant is sharing.
I am not.
Oh, wait. Share screen. This is what we did the other day.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Yay, now, there we go.
And I want to go to slideshow and begin at from the beginning.
From beginning, yep.
Okay.
There you go.
Great. Well, welcome everybody. You now know that technology is not quite my forte. I somehow got left behind when stereos were big and speakers were even bigger. I could set those up really fast after a move, but in any event, I'm on now. One of the things I always do when I start teaching is I ask, and I know there's a lot of people on today, so I'm not sure how this will work today, but I always ask if anybody has a really burning issue that if you leave after 2 hours and you go, well, she was really good, but I really wish she had addressed this. So if someone has a burning issue with how brain spotting can positively impact a person's recovery, I'm going to give us about 5 minutes tops for you to bring it up. So please be cognizant that there's probably about 70 people or more on right now. And would you keep yours short, but please unmute yourself and let me know if there's something. And if I know it's in the talk, I will tell you that it is. And if it's something that isn't, I'm going to jot down a few words and get it in where I think it fits. So is there anybody who wants to share a burning issue?
Let's see. I've got Caitlin Harvey here that says she wants to know what brain spotting is and how it happens.
Oh, great. That's definitely addressed during this for
and
sure.
How it can benefit, and Autumn would like to know how it can benefit those with psychosis.
Ooh, let me jot that down. How to benefit those with psychosis. Great question.
How to compare and contrast with EMDR.
Okay.
How it works with youth.
Okay.
Can it be used with IFS?
Uh-huh.
You guys are great today. They came prepared.
Anything else?
All right. I will pop back on if I see anything else surface.
All righty. Great. I think after I have spoken about EMDR, I will do a brief compare and contrast with when I have gone through Brainspotting. I'll do a brief compare and contrast with EMDR from my perspective. If some of you are trained EMDR people, you will probably know more and see and hear and feel more as we go along. In terms of internal family systems, it plays very well with internal family systems. And there has been a lot. Well, let me just go through and we will address these issues. So I got trained in Brainspotting in 2013. I had already been a therapist for many, many years. Somewhere between 2013 and now, I considered retiring. My husband retired and I tried it on for size for about a week thinking about it. And then I just went, I don't want to retire yet. I've got this great set of tools finally after all these years that work so effectively for trauma and stress and anxiety that I really don't want to just take it and do a few more paintings in my life. So I'm still working and still enjoying the heck out of it. So Brainspotting provides new resources for clinicians. It really does. There's a large variety of techniques that can help you in your daily work with clients with Brainspotting. And Brainspotting is meant also to be another tool in your therapist tool bag, if you will. You can use it in the middle of a session. You can use it solely during a session and then process afterwards. It's really a great adjunct when you are trained in it. So it can be incorporated easily into the work you have been doing already. It gives you new effective ways of helping your clients heal. And I'll explain what I mean by healing a little later. That's why the asterisk is up on that slide. And this will be a whet your appetite for more training experiences versus allowing you to do Brainspotting when you leave here today. There may be one technique that we may try out together, but other than that, I really want you to go and do training. In fact, those of you in Colorado, which I think most of you are really lucky because we have a fantastic Brainspotting community in Colorado. We have the Rocky Mountain Brainspotting Institute up in Boulder, and we have some of the main Brainspotting therapy instructors in our state, Pi Fry and also Melanie Young. The way Brainspotting happened is David Grand, who began developing Brainspotting, he was actually an EMDR therapist. And he was a trainer of EMDR therapists. So he knew EMDR very, very well. And he was working with a young ice skater. She was, I think, late teens or early 20s. And she was really having trouble doing a triple axel, which is a pretty basic move that you make all the time as a skater. And he had tried everything that he could think of, including EMDR, somatic experiences, and nothing was getting her over this hump to where she just couldn't do a move that she had been doing for like 10 years of her life. And one day, as they were struggling during a session, he noticed that she kept looking away from him, and gazing at one particular spot. And he just kept noticing that she kept going there, and he just had this hunch, and he said, you know what, you keep looking at that spot over there. Why don't you just stay on that spot and just process whatever comes up? Just whatever comes up as you're looking at that spot out there and, you know, in the atmosphere in front of you. And she did. And somehow at the end, she came to this, just felt great at the end of the session, at the end of processing. And the next day she called him really thrilled from the ice rink, saying that she had just done 25 minutes straight of successful triple loops and the block was completely gone and she was just enjoying the heck out of skating. When David had that experience with that skater, he immediately called some of his colleagues who he really respected a lot, and he told them what happened. And he started saying to them, let's start experimenting with this idea. There's so much with the eyes. Let's let clients go places they want to go. Let's see what happens and let's share the results. And to this day, David has that philosophy that brain spotting is for all of us to use, to develop some different ways of using it and to share our knowledge of what we're learning with each other. So it's a very dynamic approach. In fact, I got the first 2 trainings, actually the first 4, back in 2013, and then I got them again during COVID, and I was surprised by how different things were than when I had first learned them. All right, so that's what I just said. So deep healing from trauma, brain spotting results in deep healing from trauma and other issues. And I have seen that over and over and over again. It empowers people to be different instead of being stuck. And what I mean by that is, you know, often in life, there's something that triggers you. It could be a family member, it could be an event, it could be a sight, it could be a feeling, it could even be a smell. And whenever that happens, that particular thing happens, you have this knee-jerk reaction as if the doctor is hitting you with that rubber mallet they used to do when we were kids. And something comes out of your being, some emotion, some words, some feelings, and you don't really have control over them. They just happen. And oftentimes we don't like those automatic reactions. We really don't. We've grown out of them. We would like new ones. We've worked in therapy on it, and somehow we haven't gotten, you know, to the middle of that onion in terms of taking off the layers so that we actually can have a new automatic response, which is one that we like and we're proud of. So brain spotting allows that to happen. And we kind of think that it's new neural pathways being created in the brain. So people come up with new options or responses versus old automatic reactions. So brain spotting can work on anything that people bring into you that they feel like is a reaction that comes out of them that isn't something they want anymore, and they want to have more thoughtful, mindful responses that they know they're capable of, but they don't seem to be able to actually incorporate into daily living. The other thing I've seen brain spotting do tremendously is downregulate people's reactions in general and their trauma reactions. I'm going to give you an example. I was working with a young person in their mid-30s who was coming in for anxiety, and that person said they had experienced anxiety. They couldn't remember a time in their life, even as a young child, where they were not anxious. And I did my first brain spotting session with this person, and at the end, this person said, "Oh my gosh, this is what they mean by relaxing, isn't it? I had never experienced this before in my life." And his whole tonality was so different than it had been. He said, "This is nice. I'd like to be able to feel this again." And he did, between brain spotting and between practicing grounding exercises and breathing exercises. He really turned his life around and was thrilled with the responses that he had and with being able to live differently than constant fear and trepidation that the anxiety would take over, or feeling like the anxiety was coming in and he was chasing it down the street. So people downregulate their systems, producing more calm and healing in their lives, as this one young person did. What ends up happening after brain spotting is that people have more degrees of freedom in how they feel, how they respond, how they act, behave, and relate to themselves and others. It was developed to have the person come up with new ways of handling their old triggers, to have new thoughtful responses become automatic rather than repeating their old trauma reactions in an involuntary, unhealthy pattern. And it was developed to empower people to grow and change. And as I said, it seems to create new neural pathways in the brain. Two of my favorite things about brain spotting really is that it begins with the with a premise that people know how to, that your body knows how to heal yourself. And I'm talking about your body from here down, not your head. So often in therapy, we're dealing with people acknowledging what's happening and sometimes having those aha moments, but we don't get to acceptance that easily without judgment, and then action can follow. And we know in the program, we talk about the 3 steps of change being acknowledging in your head, action in your gut, accepting in your gut, and then actions follows kind of easily, like the trip from your head to your heart or your head to your gut, which is only about 18 inches or 12 inch or about 18 inches. It can take a lifetime to get there. And with brain spotting, we can get it there much, much faster. When we share that belief with clients, when we tell clients, part of why we're doing this work is that we know that your body knows how to heal yourself, and you just have to get in touch with your body some more. I remember that when I was first trained, we weren't thinking about some of the latest research about the idea that in your gut, you actually have kind of a second feeling brain, and that the intestines kind of look like parts of the brain. So when you think about that, it really, especially people who are very cognitively oriented, when you're not that in touch with your body and what your body is telling you, you're missing a lot of clues. And when you share with clients that they are going to be able to heal themselves, that you're there to guide, you're there to come along on the ride, but it is not about you changing them. It's about them changing them. And that becomes very empowering to people, especially when you built a trusting relationship with them already. They're likely to actually believe or entertain that possibility. Other things I appreciate about brain spotting, it's very freeing, because when you're into patterns that you've been doing for years, communication patterns, emotional reaction patterns, ways of behaving patterns that you have to apologize for afterwards, or you feel humiliated after you've had some kind of emotional outburst, to not have to do that anymore, to leave that truly behind and not live in fear of the next outburst or the next time you overreact to something that's triggered from something in the past. It's very freeing and it's powerful. The client directs the process, because although we are saying, where is that in your body? It's the client figuring out where it is in the body. It's the client rating the level of it. So it's healing on deep levels. One of the things we've realized with some research on brain spotting is that brain spotting goes into the subcortical area of the brain. And that's why it's healing on deep levels. We know that the subcortical area of the brain is where trauma triggers and memories and emotions are kept. And this really does trigger that part of the brain. And it can lead to lasting change, which in our field means it enhances recovery and helps prevent relapse. Because when you can really change the patterns in people, when people no longer have to carry around the emotional pain of unresolved trauma, they don't have to use, because they were using largely to get away from that pain. And if that pain isn't there anymore, and those trauma triggers aren't being reactive anymore, they don't need to use, because they're feeling okay in the here and now. And how magical is that? Part of why we think these tools of brain spotting work is that really brain spotting is an attunement model and an attachment model. So when old attachment disruptions from childhood, abandonment, abuse, neglect, life-threatening traumas, big T and little t trauma cumulatively get triggered, it often causes the involuntary response of fight, flight, or freeze reactions in the moment and long after when it's been triggered. In brain spotting, we work on the trauma trigger reaction dynamic, and that's the part that we downregulate. That's the part that we heal. So it doesn't even come into play anymore. The neurobiology of trauma and attunement of brain spotting is fascinating, and I'll say more about what I mean by this. Brainspotting seems to heal cues that are perpetuating trauma reactions while creating new neural pathways in the brain. So, so why do we have to address and heal big T and little t trauma? Well, being in a traumatized state does not allow a person to be free in life today, because half of them is still not responsive in the moment. It's caught up in the part of the brain that is going to be triggering trauma reactions and fight, flight, freeze, and you know, like in Monopoly, there's do not go past go directly to jail. With trauma, it's go directly to your amygdala and just get stuck in there, and the amygdala will decide whether you're in fight, flight, or freeze. You are not going to decide that. Trauma contributes immensely. We know that, to a person using to deaden their pain. We know that to be true. And we've known that for years in the addiction field. Trauma contributes greatly to relapse because the person's trying to relieve or escape the pain. Experiencing unresolved pain causes dysfunctional, automatic, emotionally painful reactions, which sometimes alienate themselves from themselves even, and definitely from others, when outbursts or unpredictable behavior takes over front stage and in any kind of human interaction. Why address it? Because using is the main only options alcoholics and addicts have for coping with their emotional pain stemming from their unresolved trauma until healing takes place. Does that ring true for you folks? That really, that is, it's interesting. When I started off in the field in '81, I had come from teaching at Central Michigan University, and I moved to San Francisco, and the only job I could find was as co-clinical director of the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic Detox Project. Well, the Detox Project mainly dealt with what we used to call street junkies, people shooting up heroin. Although when I was there, cocaine hit big and we started having that too. But after 2 months of being there, because I had not trained extensively in substance abuse, I was thrown in by, just thrown in because they thought I could handle a lot of psychological issues that people brought up, and they had faith in me and they hired me. But I really didn't know a lot about substance abuse, and I sure didn't know anything about heroin and people who were using heroin. So I listened a lot because I felt like I needed to learn. And after 2.5 months of just listening to people's stories and trying to help and, trying to be there for people as best I could, I went and talked to Dr. David Smith, who had started all the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinics. And I said to David, all of these people have these common denominators. He said, well, what is it, Joanne? I said, everybody who's coming in here has such traumatic childhoods or adolescence. They're using to deaden the pain. We've got to start dealing with trauma. And he just said to me, Joanne, you may be absolutely right, but this is only a detox clinic. We get paid. Our grants are for detoxing people. They're not for doing that kind of work. I said, but if we don't do that, they're just going to keep coming back. And indeed, people had files that were this big and bigger from coming back and back and back. When we address people's trauma, when they are no longer victim to it, in essence, it helps them stay clean and sober. And it enhances a person's recovery and functioning by healing trauma. People have a lot better chance of living what the program promises of a simple, joyous, and free life when they heal their unresolved, lingering trauma. This is what happens, and you have seen this over and over again in your programs, in your offices. When we don't help our clients heal their trauma and emotional pain, they know or they believe in their lives the following to be true. I don't count. I'm not worth it. I'm full of self-loathing. I'm inadequate. I'm hopeless about my life ever being different. It all gets grouped into unofficial, state of low self-esteem, mood swings, heightened sympathetic nervous system, rampant stress, uncontrollable anxiety, and insomnia. And using becomes a viable option for them because life is uncomfortable enough that they want to escape. So healing trauma. Since trauma, we want people to do more than survive. We want people to thrive in life. I used to talk about the idea that most of our clients come in and they are survivors. They have survived a lot. They don't have much confidence that they could thrive in life. They know they can survive, but sometimes they don't know if just surviving and hanging in there is worth it, is worth the effort. So when they sometimes find themselves thriving, they think that's all there is in life. And I think there's another step of soaring, S-O-A-R-I-N-G, my New York accent coming in. But I don't want people to just leave therapy or leave treatment and feel like they're surviving. I want them to be thriving. I want them to be enjoying life, and I want them to soar with their dreams. Because Brainspotting can downregulate the person's autonomic nervous system, what that does is it effectively turns off or reduces your emotional reactivity of implicit memories while creating new neural pathways and healing, which are used that you no longer have to be triggered, and you now have more mindful responses rather than those irrational reactions and out of control automatic reactions that you're so used to. When healing takes place, the person no longer experiences the old automatic, traumatized, emotionally heightened or triggered state. The memory of what happened no longer holds the triggering power it did. You don't forget that it happened. You know what happened in your life. It's just that you can be who you are today, whatever date it is, whatever age you are. You're not regressing back to that time. You're in the present. Even as you talk about what happened in the past that used to affect you so strongly and no longer does. Fight, flight, or freeze are no longer the automatic go-to reactions that you're relying on. Here's my definition of healing. I don't know if anybody else came up with it. I don't know that I'm singularly brilliant and came up with this on my own. But in my mind, healing is being able to be fully conscious in the present moment, being able to make choices and respond in a mindful, thoughtful way, rather than react involuntarily to past trauma. I think healing is also behaving in a way that you are pleased with yourself, that you are thinking more highly of yourself, that you are no longer upset with how you're behaving in certain situations. We know when someone gets re-triggered from either big T trauma or accumulation of little t traumas, the body and the brain goes into a heightened triggered state to survive this one. It's like survival terror. And it triggers one of the three involuntary primitive survival responses of flight, fight, or freeze. And I understand that now we're adding fawn to that, F-A-W-N. And I think of fawn as primitive codependency, like, oh, it'll be okay, honey, and trying to downregulate other people around you and trying to please everybody around you. And just you get lost in that mix, who you are yourself. And the person is stuck in the subcortical area of the brain. They're feeling some degree of emotional pain and they're more likely to use or relapse, depending on their tolerance to live in that distress that it's taking place in the subcortical area of the brain. We know that this frontal cortex of the brain, the neocortex, is where our thinking, our executive functioning takes place. You cannot be in both places at the same time. They're incompatible. You just can't be. So even though the subcortical area of the brain rests right underneath the area where our executive functioning is, once you're down there and in there, you are no longer thinking straight. Your executive thinking and functioning is off. It's not within the realm of you attaining it. You are stuck where you are until you can find your way out. And brain spotting allows you to do that. This is another thing of why healing trauma is so important, is what happens inside when we're in fight, flight, or freeze. We judge ourselves harshly, which leads us to shame. And you know how many people come into treatment with huge amounts of shame and self-loathing. We do the same things over and over again, expecting different results, which feels crazy and powerless. And it is crazy and powerless. Many people I've worked with over the years have said, well, when I'm not doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, I do the same thing over and over again more intensely. And I expect different results. And all I get is more intense, crappy results. I think we've all heard that in our offices and in our rooms and group rooms. We feel impotent, which can lead to terror that it will never change, which leads to more feelings of inadequacy inside. We don't understand our inability to get past what we want to get past. We feel angry and frustrated with ourselves and with others, and we feel let down by ourselves as well as others. You know how many people come in and say, I'm really smart. I don't understand why I can't get past this. This was 30 years ago, and I still have trouble when I get triggered there. We often plunge into a vicious downward spiral of shame, inadequacy, self-loathing, self-hate, and using. We know it. It's predictable. We know sometimes when we're working with people, we kind of feel when they're slipping into that place of no longer having faith in themselves and going back into relapse. It's challenging for us human beings who want to grow and change and no longer be held back by certain events or people in our past. We want to take back our power, but we find ourselves stymied again and again. Again, we put ourselves down, we expect more, we want more, we judge ourselves harshly. I've been working with a lot more younger people in the last few years. And by younger people, I mean college-age students. And the amount of self-hate talk and self-loathing talk that goes on, leading to a great deal of anxiety that's often coupled with a real addiction to social media, is pretty amazing. And this is a lot of what people are talking about, putting themselves down, imagining other people are saying bad things about them. I mean, just a great deal of stress and anxiety because they can't stop their habits of going on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, where everybody else seems to be having a great life and they are comparing their insides with other people's outsides, and they are coming up really short. So being in the land of fight, flight, freeze, or being in the land of subcortical area of the brain and the amygdala, it leads to so many uncomfortable and negative emotions. There's no thoughts present. You're taken away from rational thoughts as you're hijacked to a brain location you don't want to be in and where you can't see or find a way out. And you often don't know why you're there, where there is, or how to get out or past there, which brings up shame and inadequacy. And this is often where we meet our clients. When a person is in fight, flight, or freeze, a person's emotional reactions can't be processed rationally because the neocortex, where rational thought is housed, is essentially unavailable or offline. This creates a negative loop of memory with involuntary reactions, which keep reoccurring and interfering with the person's ability to be fully present in any given moment when re-triggering is taking place. I'm thinking about years ago when I worked with Dr. Carl Whitaker, who's one of the papas of family therapy, and we worked a lot with very impaired human, very people who were schizophrenic and their families. So for the person who wanted to know how would this work with psychosis, there's been a lot of work with multiples with this technique, using multiples with different kinds of psychoses, because you can listen to the voices inside. You can feel what it feels like to be one of those voices inside. You can get in touch with all that's happening inside and be able to work with it very differently. I will often, once I teach people about the amygdala and the fight, flight, freeze, what I tell them is to thank themselves when they recognize they're in there. If they can red flag what it feels like in their body when they are in fight, flight, freeze, they're already on their way out. It's that they didn't even realize there was that part of the brain, and they didn't realize there were ways of getting out. And so they become very empowered when I talk about the different areas of the brain, and they keep asking themselves, what does it feel like when I'm in there? What does it feel like to be in fight? And instead of being angry at themselves for it, they get to thank themselves for letting them know they're there. And they can now choose one of the many grounding techniques or breathing techniques, and they can get themselves out. And that's something I've incorporated in my work through Brainspotting, through learning about more grounding techniques and more breathing techniques over the last 7 years or so. Other things that happen when a client is in fight, flight, or freeze, or when you are, is your body is flooded with cortisol and adrenaline. It's like having 10 cups of coffee. That shuts down the person's ability to complete self-defense or escape. They are so wired that they can't even downregulate themselves. And that sends the person again into that area of the brain where the memory capsules are found. So I want to briefly go over the fight, flight, freeze. When you are in fight, you're likely to argue, disrupt. You can be verbal or physical altercations can happen. You can have a passive approach to fighting, like just go ahead, make me. You can be combative, aggressive, and there can be all kinds of verbal and nonverbal and physical altercations that take place. You know that there's times in your life probably where you have felt like all you want to do is fight. And there's that other voice going, really, it's not that big a deal. Why don't you just let it go? And it's like, God damn it, it's a really big deal. You know, and there's that internal fight going on. When you're in fight, you're likely to say things that leave you embarrassed afterwards. You might feel humiliated by a temper you can't tame. Humiliation often morphs into shame. People say things that hurt themselves and or others, and they dislike or hate themselves for it. People say things they wish they could take back. It often leads people into a downward spiral of shame, inadequacy, self-loathing, self-hate, emotional pain, which leads to using or relapse. I think another favorite thing to do in fight that rhymes with shame is blame. It's so easy when you're in that fight method to blame the other person for what they're doing that set you off. When you're in flight, you often run away physically or emotionally. People disappoint others and themselves when they don't show up. And I'm talking about physically showing up and or emotionally showing up. You know that one of the areas of neglect that children children experience as an accumulated little t trauma is when a parent is physically present but emotionally absent. People fail to keep commitments they thought they'd keep. People surprise, hurt, or disappoint others and themselves by leaving or shutting down. You know how often if you're trying to talk to a client and all of a sudden they're not there, you know, they've shut down, or a spouse or a partner or a friend who's like, you've hurt my feelings, I'm going away now. It's disappointing or hurtful to others who may not understand what's happening, just as the person may not understand what they're doing or why they're doing it when they're in runaway mode. Again, it can lead to shame, doubt, self-loathing, and knowing you've let someone down again, or you've let yourself down again. Again, what does that do? It leads to using or relapse because the person can't stand how they're feeling. It's too painful to tolerate. Freeze. I used to think of freeze as just, I don't know if you ever played the game as kids of statue. You know, you'd whirl a kid around and around and then let them go, and they had to stop and stay still for where they were. When I first heard of this freeze, I just thought it was stuck, like a deer in the headlights, frozen solid, and really no movement. And I really have come to understand and to believe that there's other options to freeze than just stuck in panic. When you are very confused, I think confusion is freeze in disguise. It's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I could do this. I could do this. I could do this. I could do this. And I just don't know what to do. I just don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. You want to tell me what to do? Because I don't know what to do. And it might be a slower version of confusion. You know, I don't understand. I just can't understand. I cannot understand. And when they can't get past that, that's a form of freeze. Often you don't even understand, the person doesn't understand their inability to commit to some kind of option. It leads to inaction because you're so caught up in your head and your confusion, but you're not caught up in the neocortex. You're caught up again in that very feeling state, reactive state where you can't figure things out. You can't clarify, you can't choose, you can't move forward, you can't weigh your options. That you can only do when you're in your neocortex. It can be an agitated or a quiet panic freeze. Freeze, again, often leads to shame, feeling inadequate. Why can't I make a decision? What's wrong with me? I mean, I have values, I have ideas, but I just can't put them into motion right now. And it feels so crappy. Anger itself, disappointment in yourself, and ultimately relapsing from self-loathing. Numbing is another form of freeze or flight. And when you numb, we used to talk about this, God, way back when, in the early 80s, when we were working with trauma for the first time with Vietnam vets. Vietnam vets were very good at numbing. They could numb down to any situation, as they had numbed down because they were in Vietnam in action for a year at a time. And it was just too much horribleness to tolerate for any system to tolerate. But the problem with numbing is that you numb across the board. You numb the painful stuff, but you also numb things that aren't as painful. Numbing is not selective. It can feel better at first on the big emotional upheavals, but when the person ends up just being numb and not really feeling engaging in life and feeling alive, and it's kind of like seeing the world in shades of gray instead of technicolor, that's another form of freeze. So fight, flight, and freeze leads to feeling and being stuck or caught, feeling inadequate, feeling insecure, needing help, feeling unworthy, believing yourself to be unlovable, and using and relapsing. So moving into brain spotting a little bit here, starting the movement. The value of attunement and attachment in brain spotting. So we know that often when people have developed substance use disorders, they're more attached to their substance of choice than to people around them. You know, kids will say, I'm not good enough, Daddy won't stop drinking and come to my baseball game. And that's not really the truth, that the child isn't good enough. It's that the father is more aligned, is more attached to using in his disease than in being the father he really wants to be. Trust has often been broken when clients come to see us, with themselves and with others. There's a lot of mistrust flying around the room. Even when there's just two of you present, you put a family in a room at the beginning of treatment, and there is so much mistrust going on. they feel at least as bad about themselves as others feel towards them. They may not admit it right away, but at some point in their recovery, they will share with family members and friends how lousy they felt about themselves when they were using. That was not a good time in their lives. There's often self-loathing from all the mistakes and hurt they've left behind, even as they deny its presence. We know that denial ain't just some big river in Egypt, right? It's the #1 symptom in this disease. They avoid significant relationships and intimacy, hiding and going away in their substances of choice and addictions. And they don't know how to connect on a significant or meaningful way. They don't even know how to connect with themselves because they're so upset with themselves. And often it's too scary to connect with someone else based on old hurts and traumas. So if you have all this hurt going on, if you have all this detachment going on, wouldn't experiencing something that feels attached and safe and healthy be good for you? So Brainspotting is an attunement model. It's attunement on several different levels. The therapist is attuned to the client. When I'm doing Brainspotting, I'm paying a lot of attention to the client. And I do all my work virtually now. I'm licensed in 3 states. I see clients from 3 states. I don't have an office anymore. I used to have really nice offices. I don't have offices anymore, don't need them. So the therapist is attuned to the client. We are paying very careful attention because what's happening inside a person's eyes in terms of flickering or all of a sudden blinking a lot, or different muscles in the face moving little bits, that's giving us vital information as we are doing Brainspotting. The client is attuned to the brain spot they have found. I get that you don't know what a brain spot is yet. We're getting there. But right now I want to talk to you about the attunement. So the client is attuned and attached to the brain spot they found or they're using. And the client is attuned to somatic cues in their body, because we keep saying, and where do you feel that in your body? Where do you feel that in your body? How is that in your body? Can you notice what's happening in your body with curiosity? We keep directing them back to their body. Maintaining an eye position, holding on to an eye spot. And this is what I use. Kind of looks like an old-fashioned car antenna. There's all kinds of them. This is really good for me, for my hands. I have some arthritis, so it's nice and soft and big. And we get this to eye level. And if I'm in the way, then I will move my head out of the way so they can see this very clearly. And this holds the brain spot for them so that they have an easier time staying in the same place. When you're maintaining that brain spot with the 3 attunements in place, what we are finding over and over and over again is that alone downregulates the person's internal triggered reactions. A person can be exposed when they are attuned to the brain spot and they're attuned to their body and we are attuned to them. They can be exposed to what is held in the brain spot, the trauma, without survival terror reactions. They do not get triggered to the point that they have in the past, in the middle of a brain spotting session. So that because they're not in that survival terror reaction, they can process what's coming up and they can process through to where they feel calm and healing has happened. It's one of the things that is different about EMDR. One of your questions and Brainspotting is we don't have to assess a person as carefully as you have to for EMDR. This is not as discombobulating to the system as EMDR can be. People who do Brainspotting and have done Brainspotting for a number of years now, who also used to do EMDR, they say Brainspotting is kind of like EMDR on steroids. It's easier to do. The results seem to be more long lasting, and the results seem to be more powerful more quickly. I'm not saying that you're going to treat somebody in one session and have a long held complex trauma resolved in 1 or 2 sessions. It's still going to take a while. But what you do along the way seems to stick and make it easier to build on. As a person experiences brain spotting, they're experiencing attachment to the brain spot. They're experiencing attachment to themselves. And they're experiencing attachment to the therapist, something they may have not been able to do for quite a while in their life. It provides safe experiences of connection. And connection is one of those basic human needs that we all have. And when people have been connected to their drug of choice and not to people for a long time, this is very healing to them. They start building confidence that they can relate to another human being and that they can relate to themselves with something other than self-criticism and judgment. And from that experience comes healing and growth, which changes the idea that being attached to others primarily brings pain, hurt, and shame. Now, all of a sudden, being attached to others can bring relaxation. It can bring feelings of a positive attachment. It can feel you can share calmness. You can share fun times. All kinds of things can happen that people have been afraid they were not going to experience again or on a regular basis for quite a while. So with brain spotting, healing takes place in the subcortical area of the brain. It's very empowering and healing for the people we're working with. The person often develops new insights and change happens that's like leaps in their personal growth and learning about themselves. You know what we say in recovery, that the 3 steps to change, I was talking about this earlier, are acknowledging in our head, accepting in our heart and gut, which is the hardest 2 steps, and then change just seems to happen. That's what seems to happen in brain spotting. During the session, you're going from acknowledging, you're starting like, yes, the discomfort from this is right here in my body. And then you're accepting it in your gut by noticing it with curiosity and just being present for it. And then change just happens while you're doing the process. Even if a person couldn't acknowledge what is or accept what is beforehand in a rational level, during the brain spotting, it does seem to really take place. I'll give you a couple of examples. One woman who I worked with who was molested by her grandfather and had developed a substance use disorder. She was sure it was her fault, even though it was from the time she was 4 to 7. And she really blamed herself a lot, that she should have told her mother. If she had told her mother, it was her fault it went on that long, and all of this stuff. Just so full of self-hatred. And when I saw her, she was in her late 30s, and she had already been practicing this self-hatred talk and blaming herself for everything in her life that wasn't working. And she had already been doing that. She was 7 years old. So she already had 30 years of practice at that. She was very, very good at it. And we did a brain spotting session. And during the session, at one point, she started really shaking. And you know, in some somatic experiencing, that's, you know, that they're really getting into it at that point. She really started shaking. And I invited her to just to notice the shaking with curiosity. And that if she wanted, she could do one way of breathing that we teach people sometimes is heart breathing. She could do some heart breathing to that part of her that was so shaken up right now. And heart breathing is breathing in through the front of your heart and breathing out the back of your heart and breathing acceptance and love and understanding to that part of us that needs it at that point in time. And so she was just sitting with that, and she's like, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid. And I said, it's neuroinspiring what you're experiencing right now, because she was seeing this really big hole with fire on the bottom. And she was afraid she was going to fall into the fire and burn up. And I reminded her that you're still in the room with me. This is a feeling that you've got. It's neurons firing. There's no real hole here. I get that that's what it feels like it's going to suck you into, and you're still right here with me, and it's neurons firing. See if you can keep breathing. And she breathed, and all of a sudden she went, oh my God, he was really sick. It wasn't me. That burning, that's inside of him. That's his sickness. That doesn't have to pull me in anymore. That's his. He should have known better. He was the older man. And she started, excuse me. The color in her face started coming in, and her face started relaxing, and she started saying, it was him. He was doing it. I was so young. He was my grandpa. My parents trusted him to take care of him, even though it didn't feel right to me. I thought I had to go along with what they wanted. I couldn't have done anything else. I was too young. And she was letting herself off the hook. And she was talking to the little girl inside of her, telling her, it wasn't you, it was him. He was a really sick man. And there was a huge amount of healing that took place that day. Wasn't the last time we did brain spotting on that, but it was a huge breakthrough, huge. Another example of I was doing brain spotting with a man who was fairly new to recovery. He had maybe 3-4 months. And he kept thinking that his wife made him do recovery because she said to him, you either go and stop drinking and figure out a way to do that, or this marriage is over. So he was very resentful at his wife, and he resented being in recovery. He didn't like it. He didn't want to be doing it. He was doing it to save his marriage. And to make matters worse, his marriage wasn't getting any better. In a few months, he had been sober. So why bother? So we did some brain spotting on how resentful he was, on how upset he was with his wife for making him be sober. And at the end of the brain spotting, as he was processing, what he said is, you know, she gave me the biggest gift she ever gave me, telling me that. Still be drinking myself into oblivion every single night, like I had been for the last 30 years. That was a gift. And you know what? That's something I want to do now. I don't want to go back there. I want my marriage to get better, but I don't want to go to sleep drunk every night and wake up feeling like I used to wake up. I'm doing this now for me. It's not about her or the marriage. This is about me. So to have gone in the stretch of 50 minutes from being so caught up in resenting his wife for making him do this and resenting being in recovery to, no, I want to be in recovery. This is, I'm deciding this now. She told me to do it. But me, I'm the one going to AA meetings. I'm the one seeing you twice a week. I'm the one not drinking. And I'm not drinking because I don't want to drink right now. So those are the kinds of experiences you have when you're brain spotting with people. All right, now we're getting to the, how do you do this? What is a brain spot? A brain spot is simply an eye position identified outside the body that is related to the energetic or emotional activation of a traumatic or emotionally charged issue within the brain. So what does that mean in real life? What we mean is that we start by asking, let me just go through this slide and then I'll talk about it. It's a spot most connected to the client's felt sense of distress inside. So when we start a session, I ask somebody, what do you want to work on today? And do you want a brain spot? And they may say, yeah, I want to work on being really anxious because Christmas is coming up and I'm going back to see my family and everybody in my family drinks. I'm the only one who doesn't drink right now. And I'm really scared about really scared about that. I don't know if I can stay clean through a week with my family. So then I'll say to them, okay, so you on where in your body, when you think about going home, when you think about how hard it's going to be for you to be sober and for everybody around you to be drinking, where in your body do you feel that those fears? Where do you feel that distress? Where do you feel that disturbance that comes up as you bring up these scenes? And I'm going to stand for a minute. It's often between here and here on a person, but sometimes it's in the head, sometimes it's tingling in the hands. Once in a while, the distress is in their butt, you know, like all this pins and needles in their butt, but usually it's between, you know, the neck and your waist, your gut. So they identify where in their body is that. And then you ask them on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being as calm as you could possibly be about this one issue, and 10 being as crazed as you could be about this issue, where are you? Where is that distress where you have identified? So if they said it's up here on the, you know, between my throat and the top of my chest. So when you feel those feelings of just like, oh, God, how am I going to do this? Everybody's going to be drinking. I'm going to be the only one not drinking. I don't know if I can do this. On a scale of 0 to 10, where are you? And it's often between 6 and 8. So that is the client getting in touch with their body. And then depending upon what the issue is, we can find the brain spot with a numerous techniques. The most popular were inside window or outside window. What do we mean by that? So inside window is that the client chooses it and finds it. Outside window is that we see what their eyes are doing and we suggest a spot. So I have just decided for myself in my work with brain spotting is I feel that it is so powerful that I never use outside window. I'll come back and forth in front of them several times, but I do not use outside window because I want to empower them to find it on their own, and they can and they will. So inside window, what we often do is we say, okay, as you're paying attention to how that feels inside, and it's right here, and the number is an 8 or a 6 or whatever they've told you, from your right side, let's see, this is my right side, so yeah. I'm going to come slowly from your right side towards your center. Tell me if the felt sense, the feeling that you have is more attached in this area from your right side towards your center. Is it more attached, the felt sense stronger out here across your middle? Or is it, sorry with the screen, or is it across your left? Okay. Once we have which of those 3 kind of, I want to say quadrants, but quadrants are 4, so I don't know. I won't even make up a new word right now. And then we fine tune it with this. We start at eye level. So I ask the person, tell me when this is eye level. And I start all the way over at their right side. And I come across really slowly. Really slowly. If they've told me it's in the right quadrant, I'm going to come across really slowly. And I'm just going to say, just ask your body, not your brain, when the felt sense, when it feels right, that we found the spot that corresponds most to how you're feeling inside. And you would be really surprised, I think, at how often they get that on the first time. Again, if someone is just starting and they haven't done brain spotting, they may want to do it a few times. So just a note that's interesting here is that when I first learned brain spotting, I was really concerned that very left brain people, engineers, analytical people would have trouble doing this. They actually love it because they're usually not in touch with their body and they want to be. You know, and they've had complaints from their spouse. I'm like, my spouse told me I'm in my head all the time and I just can't have these conversations about feelings with her. I want the conversations about feelings. And they get it through brain spotting. They start understanding what has kept them away from getting closer to their spouse. It's really quite lovely. And I was quite certain it wouldn't work. And I really enjoyed being proven wrong on that one. One woman who I worked with, she wanted to work on, she was in her 50s, and she wanted to work on 50s, 15, 25, 35, 45, even longer than 35 years. She wanted to work on the fact that her father could very easily trigger her by how he said certain things into her old adolescent behavior of fighting with him and just getting quite hysterical and losing control. And she said she had done it long enough. She hated it. She'd been in therapy numerous times. She loved her dad. It was just that there was that hurt adolescent in there who got so easily triggered. And so we did a brain spotting session. And at that point, she was in her 50s. Her dad was in his early 90s. And what came out of her brain spotting session was she just went, every moment with my dad right now is precious. I recognize that, me, at like 58. I know that every moment with him is precious. He's not going to be around forever. And in later weeks and months, she was able to tell me that she didn't get triggered. She came in the next week all excited because they had been at a doctor's appointment, and he said something that ordinarily totally would have triggered her. And she said she heard herself as if she had said it out loud. And instead, what came out of her mouth was, well, that's a very interesting perception, Dad. And she heard that too. And that was what was real. And that's what came out. And she was like, I said that. I can't believe I said that. That was so great. So it was really had a very lasting effect for her. And that was a one brain spotting thing. So philosophy and theories of brain spotting, it's to be integrated into clinical work you do. One of the things that actually is freeing as a therapist when I'm doing brain spotting is there's no assumptions and no expectations. I follow whatever the client, wherever the client goes. Even though we may start with something, one subject that's distressing them, while they're doing their brain spotting, they may go back to when they were 3 years old, 8 years old. They may bring up something with their boss. It doesn't mean they stick with exactly what they started with. They're going to go where their body takes them on what they need to heal in that space. We let go of our expertise in essence and have a very trustful, mindful attunement with the client. And it is based on the belief that human beings are inherently wired to heal themselves. It's not our responsibility to heal them. It's their responsibility. They will be the ones doing it. Therapist gently and consistently brings the client back to the felt sense, focus on the body. Where is that in your body? Can you tell me where that is in your body right now? What's happening and where is that? We might even ask them to rate it. We might even ask them as the session goes on. So can you compare how that part of your throat that was at a 6 or 7 when we started? Where is it right now? What is it feeling like? And if it's off and down to a 3 or a 4. Be aware of how your state, your presence as a clinician is a significant influence in the energetic field that supports brain spotting process. So even though when we get to the point where we're done brain spotting enough with someone, they're doing silently and they're inside, and they may even be shutting their eyes and looking at where the spot would be on their eyelids. It doesn't mean we take out our phone and we start looking at our phone. We keep our eyes and our attunement on the person the entire time. We are sending them our positive energy, and we are sending them messages that they're doing fine. one of the things I remember hearing in my very first training is, whatever happens, follow the client's lead. Whatever happens, follow the client's lead. And the very first client I worked with, on the day I came back after this 4-day training, during the brain spotting, all of a sudden she slumped out of her chair. It's slowly but surely and onto the floor. And my one reaction was, oh my goodness, what's happening now? And then I heard the teacher saying, follow the client's lead. Everything is okay in brain spotting. There's nothing that's wrong in brain spotting. So I just slumped down onto the ground with her, kept holding this at the spot we had decided on, and we continued the session. Oftentimes, we live with the past interfering in the present moment and with our thoughts about the future. Brain spotting frees us from that triggered charged feedback loop, and we can be fully in the present moment, which is, again, it is so, even when things in the present moment are not running smoothly in your life, because during brain spotting, you are calm or relatively calm, you can figure out what to do with what's happening as you're resolving other issues. Brain spotting allows the person to heal their past rather than having their past interfering in the present. And that is so big. It is huge. And again, that's very, very freeing for people to experience. I don't know if I say it later on, so I'll say it now. One of the other things that I learned in my first training, and I've learned since then, it's been said over and over again, is, you know, those great insights we have while we're doing therapy with somebody? We're just like, we just know we've got it, and we can't wait to share it with them. And if they're in the middle of talking, we'll let them finish, but then we're going to share our great insight with them about what's happening in their life. Well, one of the things that as brain spotting therapists is, we don't share that stuff. Why? Because it's our insight. It's not theirs. We want them to come up with their own insights. They may take ours on and then not do all of their work that they need to do. So you can entertain yourself. You can hear it. You can go, what? That's a cool theory. Just don't share it, because it takes away from their ability to figure it out on their own. And at first it was funny, because when the first person first told that, a lot of us were like, oh, darn it, that really makes therapy fun for us. It's like, yeah, fun for you, but you're the therapist. They're the person coming in for the growth work. So how is it done? We have the client identify what he or she wants to work on. For instance, what's bothering them, what's distressing them, stopping her, limiting them, traumatizing them, keeping them stuck. How does that feel? And ask the client, where is that felt sensation in your body? Where is that feeling? And people who have been out of touch with their bodies a lot and live in their heads, it may take them a while, and just be real patient. You just stay real patient. It's okay. It's a thought in your head, but the distress part, that's called a feeling. You can tell me what you're upset about, but when you say, I feel anxious, that's a feeling, and that's someplace happening from here down to your toes. Where is the anxiety housed right now? Where is it sitting in your body? And sometimes I'll have people take a little mini car ride through your body and see, where is that anxiety right now? People actually can get in touch with that. They do figure it out, especially when you're telling them, you know, just take your time and figure out, where is that anxiety? Sometimes the anxiety is in the head. Sometimes it's your head, you know, going like this inside, or so many conversations at once. It feels really agitated, but they can figure it out. And then I explain SUDS on a scale of 0 to 10. It's based on Wolpe, the behavioral therapist back in the 60s and 70s, what he used to call subjective units of disturbance, but on a scale of 0 being as calm as possible, 10 being as crazed. What number are you? And you ask the client, what number are you right now? Once we have the brain spot and we know where it is, Then they do what's called processing on keeping their eyes on this. Now, what does process mean? Processing means whatever comes up for your client. It could be words, it could be memories, it could be thoughts, sensations, neurons firing, insights, doubts, phrases, body feelings, emotions. It could be like a videotape, it could be an 8x10, it could be in color, it could be black and white. Whatever comes up for the client as they are keeping their eyes on this spot is fine. And what we say is just notice that with curiosity. Well, I'm feeling a little fear. Okay, where's that fear in your body? It's in the pit of my stomach. Okay, can you just breathe and step into that fear? Can you just feel the fear? It's neurons firing. We're still in the room together, or we're still, doing our session. Can you allow yourself to just feel the fear? And one of the things that people learn is when they let themselves feel the fear, instead of being angry at the fear, instead of wishing the fear away or wanting the fear to go away, it morphs into something else. It doesn't last that long as fear. And they're just going, okay, I'm really scared. I'm really scared. Okay, great. You're really scared. What number are you up to? I'm an 8 now. I'm really scared. Okay. It's neurons firing. Just stick with the fear. See if the fear has anything to tell you. Well, it's afraid I'm not doing this right. Okay. So notice that the fear is afraid you're not doing this right and you want to be doing this right. Yeah, I do. I want to get something out of this. You've told me about brain spotting and I really want to get something out of this. Okay. So I know that you really want to get something out of this and you're wanting something to happen. All right. So just notice in your body how much you want that to happen. And just notice with curiosity the strength of your wanting something to happen with this that will be helpful to you. Just notice it. Just notice it with curiosity and see what happens. And then they notice it and they stay with it. It's like, well, I guess I can just trust the process a little more. I'm like, all right. And how does that feel to trust the process? Well, it feels better. Where in your body is that feeling of trust happening? I think it's right up here. I think my heart's getting warm because I am. I'm like, okay, I don't have to be so stressed about it. I think I can just feel what happens and see what this is like. Cool. Do you want to thank yourself for getting there? Well, I guess I could, huh? Yeah, I feel good about that. All right. So where is that feeling good in your body? Well, it's still in my heart. My heart is feeling really warm. And then I might say something like, do you want to send that warmth throughout your body? Do you want to send that warmth to every cell in your body? Yeah, that might be really interesting. Wow. This is really nice. What's nice about it? Where is nice feeling? That's how we go when we're doing the brain spotting. Because the brain spotting works on the subcortical area of the brain, which is actually a nonverbal area of the brain, part of what we know is that when somebody knows how to do brain spotting and they've done the process a number of times, they can trust their own process. They can come out when they need it. But much of the work can be done non-verbally. You could be holding this in one place, or if we're doing rolling brain spotting, you could be rolling across and going to different places and staying at different places. And I just lost my train of thought. That's weird. So we can do it in so many different ways. And when the person is processing and they've done it a few times, then they can process it non-verbally and they need less input from us because they've learned when a new feeling comes up, look at where it is in my body, feel where it is in my body, step into it with curiosity. Just trust the feeling. It's just neurons firing, and see where it will lead, or ask it if it wants to tell you anything. They will learn to be able to do that with themselves inside. Some people will want you to walk them through the whole time, and that's fine too. So we use our clinical instincts and knowledge about brain spotting to decide which way would be more effective for the person that day. And sometimes I'll give them the options. If we've done a different brain spots, different forms of brain spotting, going to a distress spot or the resource spot or gaze spotting, or which we'll get to again in a few minutes, they can choose. They can choose which one they want to do. So it seems to be even deeper healing when it's done non-verbally. It's still very effective verbally. We do know that each time the person talks, it brings you up closer and into the neocortex from the subcortical area. And the subcortical area is where the very deep healing takes place. I encourage people, when they are able to trust the process more and feel competent, to do more of their work non-verbally and sharing or asking for help when they want to. I always leave at least 10 minutes at the end to process verbally with people what they have experienced. Listening to bilateral audio music at a barely audible level is another enhancing piece used in brain spotting. And you can download things from brainspotting.com. David Grant has a free bilateral audio music that you can download. You can go to Amazon Music and download some. There's another site called the Bodhi Tree, B-O-D-H-I, the Bodhi Tree. And they have some beautiful all natural nature sounds to bilateral. So it's going back and forth in your ears. And it's barely audible level as you do your processing. So inside window, I explained, is that the person gets to say where their felt sense in their body is out here to begin with. Outside window is I might come across all the way, or the therapist would come across all the way slowly. And by slowly, I pretty much mean coming from the person's right side, really slowly across, and watching very carefully what their eyes are doing and their facial movements are doing. And when I see something going, that's where the brain spot would be. The distress spot is finding a spot outside that corresponds with the most distress in your body at that point. Gaze spotting is just wherever, even in the middle of a session, if a person keeps looking at one particular place, you might invite them, like David did with his ice skater that first time. I noticed that you keep looking to the right and slightly down a little bit. Would you keep just looking at that spot and talk about what we're talking about, but just keep your eyes on that spot for a while and see what comes up. That's called gaze spotting. Rolling brain spotting. I actually loved rolling brain spotting. It's where you start at the person's right side, which I guess would be here, reversing it on the screen, and coming very slowly after you've, again, identified where is the feeling, what number is it, and as soon as you start seeing the person's eyes flickering or blinking or twitching, you stay at that spot. And you wait until they process it through enough at that spot. I also say to people, if I'm holding one spot too long, you can just tell me to keep going. Or if I'm going to another spot and you have more work to do on that spot, just hold up your hand. That way we're keeping it nonverbal. And again, I'm following their lead. It doesn't mean we're going to get across the entire horizon in one session. We may stay on the first one. We may stay on the second or the third. It doesn't matter. There's not an agenda that we have to go across the whole rolling area. We follow their lead. One-eyed brain spotting, when somebody really needs to be resourced, when something is very, very activating to somebody, and you want them to be really well resourced so that they can handle what's coming up, you do what's called one-eyed brain spotting. And I have them bring a scarf or a bandana or something that can, and we go to, we cover one eye and say, is it stronger here or is it stronger this way? And then we have them put something over the eye so that where it's strongest, the spot out here that they're finding, they do that. And then they keep that on the entire session. And that's one-eyed brain spotting because it's more resourcing than two-eyed brain spotting. X-axis of near and far. We can also move in and we can move out for where the brain spot is as we're doing it. Using bilateral music, and then squeeze the lemon. At the end, we might go back to the original thing and say, what number are you now? And what number are you at the end? To make sure that we have really completed the work for the day. I always allow at least 10 minutes for verbal processing after brain spotting because the number definitely often comes down before we close for the day. Sometimes at the end of the time allotted for brain spotting, the person is still at a 3+. I've never had that happen, but I know it does happen. Ask the person if they're comfortable with continuing their work at another time. Make sure they feel assured and trust that you are going to come back and do the rest of it. What I would also try doing at that point is I would do something called vergence. I want to see if there's something that, and I will explain that in a little bit. So just make sure the person trusts that you're going to finish another time. Remind them at the end of a brain spotting session that the work of brain spotting seems to continue even after a session. They may come up with more insights. They may even have interruptions in their sleep or thoughts as things pop up that hadn't popped up before. They could have some physiological issues. They could have a new pain that surfaces, and they could have relief and more memories processed in a different way than has been processed before. Healing seems to take place on a deep level. Clients enjoy the process. Clients lead the process, and the client feels empowered by it. These techniques seem to be effective for people who become dysregulated during EMDR sessions, and they can be used with any other forms of therapy. You can use brain spotting for resolving trauma, for chronic pain, for acute pain and healing, issues that keep people stuck or blocked, performance issues. You can also use it for stress, for anxiety, for phobias. I did a session with a 14-year-old once who had gotten stuck in an elevator, and she really was phobic about going in elevators. She said there were times that she's climbed up 20 flights of stairs in order to avoid an elevator. And at the end of a session, during the session itself, she had come down to a 0. And she was leaving the session, and I said, well, why don't I come downstairs with you? And as we walked down the hall to the elevator, which she had never taken before, never taken it, I just pushed the button as we were talking. She walked into the elevator with me as if she had been walking on elevators all the time, didn't even say anything, just continued on how cool that was, how much she really enjoyed the session. She felt so much better about elevators. And when we got down to the first floor and walked out of the elevator, I said, do you realize what you just did? She goes, well, what do you mean? We did a brain spotting session. I said, you're walking out of an elevator. And her eyes just like got really big, and she goes, oh my. She said a word I'm not supposed to say on video. And she said, I didn't I? Let's go up again. So we went up again and we came back down again, and she was perfectly fine. And throughout the next few months, I had heard from her mom, who I worked with for another 1.5 years, that she was still doing fine with elevators. She didn't need any more work. Doesn't always work that beautifully, and sometimes it does. So it's creating new neural pathways. It's deep mind-body healing. And healing all these issues leads to enhanced recovery and therefore relapse prevention. Brain spotting can be used for repetitive dysfunctional patterns. What is the next sentence? I seem to have made a mistake there. All of on the last two slides. Oh, all of everything on the last two slides we went through, which is, no. The dysfunctional patterns, the stress, the anxiety, the phobias, all of those things on the last two slides can affect a person's sobriety if it's left unresolved. We know that. And it can lead to relapse if the person doesn't know how to cope when their memories intrude, leading to dissociation or getting triggered, or the pain increasing to the level where it's like, I don't even want to live feeling this uncomfortable. I'm going to go get high. So how do we incorporate aspects of brain spotting into our regular work? I will often ask during a regular session, can you ask your body, not your brain? Or I invite you to ask your body about that, what you're talking about, not your brain. What does your body feel about that? I'll often ask them when they're feeling something, where is that in your body? How strong is that feeling? Can you sit with it and perhaps just breathe to it? Sometimes I'll just tell them to breathe, and sometimes I'll ask them if they want to breathe acceptance or compassion to that which is really upsetting them, that part of them. So when someone asks, can we do this with IFS? In IFS, we're talking about different parts to people. In brain spotting, we're also having them breathe to different parts of people, to perhaps go back and talk to that 3-year-old that's popping up during a brain spotting session. Well, do you want to interact with that 3-year-old or that 6-year-old who's just showed up? What does the 6-year-old want you to know? You never listen to me. I just have to jump up and down and get all upset inside you to get you to listen to me. That's a pretty important lesson to hear. Well, I'm busy being an adult. Yeah, but I have a say in this too. I'm still hanging around inside of you. Okay, well, what do you want me to know? I want you to know that I'm not sure you can handle some things that come up with your mother. So that you then can tell that kid, I've got this one. I worked on that. I'm not so hooked into her doing that anymore. You can stay playing. I'm going to go show up for dinner with mom. You don't have to even come. I got this one. I'm the adult. More ways. We can use gaze spotting when we see it happening. We keep our insights to ourselves. Our insights are ours, and the client can come up with their own when we encourage or empower them to heal and trust themselves. We can be more aware of attunement during a session and helping a client attune to themselves. So when they're rambling on and on from their head, you can ask them, what does that feel like inside right now to be hearing yourself saying these things? And pause. What do you mean, what does it feel like inside? I'm just telling you what's on my mind. I said, I know, but as you're telling me, what's it feeling like inside? Well, I'm getting agitated. Can you sit with that agitation? Does your body want you to continue to tell me the story and get more worked up? Or do you want to calm down a little and deal with what you've been saying out loud is bothering you? Or do you want to pile more on first? It's your choice. I'm fine either decision you make. Well, I guess I am throwing too much out for one session. Okay, let me think. I'm feeling kind of stuck right now. Okay, so where is that feeling stuck in your body? It's actually like back here in my head. Okay, good. Just notice that a little bit. Notice where it's feeling stuck in your head. And see if your head wants to listen to your body. Well, I'm not feeling anything in my body. All right. Notice what it feels like to not feel anything in your body and to be stuck in your head. Just notice that. Well, I don't like it very much. It makes me feel like I'm running down the street trying to catch myself. Okay, good. Would you like to slow down a little? Yes, I would. Okay. How about if we just breathe some compassion to yourself right now? Is this something that happens to you other times? Yeah, it happens all the time to me. That's why I'm here. I'm anxious all the time. Okay, good. Thank you for showing me what it feels like, it sounds like to be you and to have enough anxiety that you really want to slow it down. So let's do some deep breathing and slow it down and see what comes up. It's another way that we can incorporate what we know about brain spotting into our work. We really can feel a weight lift from our shoulder, knowing it's their work, not ours. We're there to assist. We're not there to direct, and we're not there to be the great healer. Examples of questions you can ask during a brain spotting session. And you can do this during a regular session. Will that feeling talk to you? If not, what does it need to feel safe enough to share? If it will talk to you, what does it want you to know? Is that something useful to you? How would you like to use it? How do you want to remember what you just experienced? Can you be present for that with that feeling and notice it with curiosity? No judgment, just curiosity, and see where it will lead. Do you want to breathe compassion or acceptance to that feeling or thought? Brain spotting is exciting, it's effective, it's an evolving set of tools to add to a skilled clinician's tool bag. It increases a person's options for living a thoughtful, mindful life. It helps people stay in recovery by healing old traumas and allows them to feel better in their bodies and lives right here, right now, today. It reduces pain and discomfort. It enhances self-esteem and coping abilities, which in turn reduce relapse. It enhances how a person functions in life. It enhances the person's quality of life. It enhances a person's intimate relationships because they resolve issues that keep them stuck in patterns that don't work in a loving, caring relationship. It allows people to live in ways they wanted to, rather than being stymied by automatic, emotional, knee-jerk reactions. So in summary, I think we will have time to try something. Brain spotting is an attuned process of client and the therapist. It takes place on at least 3 levels: body sensation, neural activity, and mindfulness in the moment, with 3 different attunements at once. The client attuned to this brain spot, the client attuned to their insides, and you attuned to the person. The therapist engages differently than in traditional therapy. We observe and listen more, we interact less, and we keep our insights to ourselves, allowing clients to come up with their own insights, leading to their healing. Brain spotting therapists operate from the assumption that a person's problems and solutions for those problems reside inside the client, not inside us, inside them, that your body knows how to heal itself. A person's healing that takes place through brain spotting seems to create new neural pathways, which provide the person with new options and ways to respond rather than reacting. The person often experiences a newfound sense of freedom, which enhances their recovery. It's designed as a mind-body approach. It's relational in nature, understanding that original attachment to mother caretaker to child is the foundation of the therapeutic relationship, and brain spotting is still evolving. It works by identifying, processing, and releasing core neurobiological sources of emotional body pain, trauma, dissociation, and a variety of other challenging symptoms. It's based on attunement of the therapist and client, finding a somatic cue, and processing it while down-regulating the person's brain. It seems to achieve homeostasis that is experienced as calmness and balanced. It functions as a neurobiological and a psychological set of tools, working with the subcortical nonverbal area of the deep brain and the body through direct access to the autonomic and limbic systems. It seems to have profound psychological, emotional, and physical consequences by stimulating, activating, and focusing the body's inherent capacity to heal itself, which enhances a person's recovery significantly. When we downregulate ourselves and when we downregulate clients, it allows them to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting in fight, flight, or freeze. It reduces stress and anxiety significantly so they can live healthy, dare I say happy, productive lives in recovery. They no longer have to be stuck in survival. They can thrive and they can soar. Brainspotting provides opportunities to replace old negative self-talk with new ways of thinking and talking to themselves. In the 3-step change model of acknowledge, accept, and action, Brainspotting enhances a person's recovery by allowing the 3rd step of action to happen in a relatively painless, effective way. So when we possible paradigm shifts in our work, when we learn Brainspotting, when we use aspects of it in our work, we're beginning to focus on the series of little t traumas or big T traumas and heal those rather than focusing mainly on the 12 steps for recovery. We enhance that recovery. We can recognize examples that our clients live with in terms of big T and little t trauma. We can recognize and commit to helping people who are easily triggered by past or present trauma or pain that becomes untenable to carry or deal with. And we help them do that, being fully present in the moment. We empower people by sharing the idea that their body knows how to heal, and we can get advanced training in effective ways of helping people heal and grow. These are more of what needs healing for successful recovery and relapse prevention: flashbacks, hypervigilance, anxiety, mistrust, generalized anxiety, panic attacks, self-loathing, loss of sense of self, who I am, dissociation, out-of-body experience, self-hating talk. I think we've gone over this. Again, I don't want to, the neocortex, the frontal part, is where our executive functioning takes place. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here with you today. I want to thank you for your interest in what I wanted to share with you, for your commitment in working with people wanting life to be a little different, for your commitment to helping people in recovery, and for you and all you bring to this world. I'd like to share a little about me, but before I do that, I'm wondering if you can quickly let Christy know in the chat whether you would like to try one little technique of Brainspotting before we leave today, and it's called Virgins.
I've
Or
got,
do we want-
yes, I'd love that. Yes, wonderful. Yes, yes, sure. Yes. I'm going
Okay.
with the resounding yes.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to invite you all to do. Think about something that is rather bothersome to you, not majorly. We don't have time for majorly, but something that's kind of bothering you. And I'm going to take this, let's see, my right is your left. So in the mirror, yeah, this way, I think. Hopefully this is the right side. And as you think about what is bothering you a little bit, and identify where in your body that botherance is. Look at where in your body that is. And then, whoops, And then rate it on a scale of 0 to 10. And because it's bothering, it's probably not going to go up to a 6 or 7. I don't even want it to necessarily, because we only have a couple of minutes to do this. And then come across on your own with your hand in front of your face from your right side towards your center, and see if that felt sense in your body is strongest as you come here. See if it's strongest across your center, or see if it's stronger from your center to your left side. And then fine tune it for yourself of where it is, and find a spot that corresponds with your felt sense of bother, which may only be a 3 or a 4 or a 5 inside right now. And then I want you to hold your finger up wherever that is in front of you. Okay? Hold your finger up about 18 inches from your face. And then I'm going to count, and I'm going to go close and far. So I want you to, as you start with where you're feeling, let it go wherever it goes, but look close at that 12 to 18 inches where your finger is, and then put the spot on the wall opposite you. So close will be 12 to 18 inches where your finger is, and then translate that spot to the wall across from you, and that will be far. Okay? I'm going to look at my watch, and I'm not going to hold my finger up because you all may have your fingers in very different places, and I don't want to disrupt your work. But I'm going to count, and myself, we do this at about 3-second intervals. So I'm going to ask you to start close. And now go far with the spot. Close. And far. We're going to do this a couple of minutes. Close. And far. Close. And far. Close. And far. Close. And far. And 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 last, close. What would you rate yourself now from where you were? And do you feel a difference? So we have all of 6 minutes left. I'd love to, I don't know if there's questions, if there's a chat.
I got a slew of them.
Oh, okay.
If I would, some of these have probably been answered along the way. But I have a couple questions. There's questions about where to sign up for deeper level training.
Okay.
So that's some also a question aligned with that is does this, let me find it one more time because I didn't copy that one. I had told her to reach out to you. Says, does this workshop equip us to adequately or appropriately use brain spotting with our clients, or is further training necessary?
Yeah, at the very beginning, I said this is to whet your appetite for further training, or to go for your own brain spotting therapy with a brain spotting therapist. No, I wouldn't use this stuff without the further training, because you'll learn so much more and you'll feel so competent. And if something odd happens, like a woman slumping out of her chair in your office the first time you do it, you will not go into panic mode if you know what to do and how to respond, and you have some of the breathing techniques and some of the just more understanding of the brain itself.
So where would they find these trainings? The best place to find
okay, there's 2 places to find them, basically. One is through the Rocky Mountain Brain Spotting Institute. If you Google Rocky Mountain Brain Spotting Institute, you want to start with phase 1 and phase 2 training. Also, if you go to brainspotting.com, that's David Grand's site, the International Brain Spotting site. They have probably a bigger listing of trainings. If you seek brain spotting therapy yourself, I would go with somebody who is certified brain spotting therapist. That's listed by state on the brainspotting.com website, and also Rocky Mountain Brain Spotting Institute has people who have become certified and become part of the Rocky Mountain Brain Spotting Institute. So it's just brainspotting.com or the Rocky Mountain Brain Spotting Institute.com. For those who already have levels 1 or 2, is there a specialized one for use in treating people? I think that periodically one comes up with substance abuse disorder. Again, that you look on the National Brain Spotting site for that. I use it all the time just because I do specialize in substance abuse, but I also specialize in trauma and people being stuck in anxiety at this point, because that has come up so big since COVID. Whatever we have learned in phase 1 and 2 really works well with addicts and alcoholics and other process addictions. They use brain spotting at the Bridge to Recovery. When you go there, if you go there for a month, you'll get a few brain spotting sessions. So phase 1 and 2 are very good beginning points. I don't have you had success treating binge eating or eating related disorders? I have used it with people with some eating disorders. I don't do as much eating disorders as others, but yes, because eating is so often also a result of trauma, a result of pain and trauma, so that you eat to give yourself more layers of protection from the world around you. And so again, when we go into healing the traumas that led to the compulsive overeating or led to you trying to control something and more anorexic eating, when we heal that stuff, then the eating disorders begin to get addressed as well. What did you do with your voice for the last one? Was that on purpose to prep us as the point to come to an end? That was just an automatic type thing that I do. Yeah, to just make it more peaceful. Why is brain spotting so expensive? I actually thought when I took it, it was much less expensive than doing EMDR training.
Mhm.
That was incredible. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Rachel. You can
Somebody
also-
would like to know how long the training takes.
Each training is usually Friday night to Sunday, late afternoon or early evening. It's long hours. But it goes so quickly because the way brain spotting training is done is there'll be a didactic portion for a half hour to 45 minutes, an hour, and then you immediately pair up. They have this done beautifully, even on virtual trainings, where you pair up with somebody else and you practice immediately what you have just learned, what you've just been told, you practice it, and you each get to practice it. So the whole thing is very experiential in addition to didactic. They would never talk for 2 hours the way I just did. And thank you for your patience and your interest for 2 hours. And so throughout the whole 2 days, and they'll also do, they also ask people at the beginning if you want to be available for a demo. And then during a break, they'll interview you about the demo and see if they think that this would be something that they could do in a 20 to 40 minutes demo. And it's really interesting because most when I first started brain spotting, I always allowed 2 hours and they would take at least an hour and a half. They don't anymore. I'll start a brain spotting during a session and we'll decide, if we decide by about 15 or 17 minutes after to do brain spotting, I'm good with doing it. And then I'm still going to leave 10 minutes at the end. I'll stop at like 40 minutes after the hour to leave 10 more minutes to process. And during the processing, which is just us really talking about what was that experience like for you, it usually comes down even another couple of numbers, or I will use that virgins. How did people like the virgins? Can you quickly put this in before we run out of time? How did you like it? And did you experience a difference?
Let's see how many we have. It is just past 4, so I know a lot of people had to jump off. Loved it. Rachel said she loved it. She felt the difference.
Okay.
Love the exercise.
Oh,
yep.
You know what? I didn't put up my information.
What I'll
on
do,
me.
Joanne, is
Yeah.
when I send out certificates, if you'll send me there we go. If you'll send me that contact information that you want people to reach out to, I will include it with their certificates and the link to this webinar, so everybody knows how to find you. If there's additional questions, because everybody was so wonderful today. They had a lot of input. There was some good conversations going on in the chat. So I'm just going to say, I am so grateful for you for taking the time to do this for us. This was a wonderful presentation. And I know based on the comments that everybody got a lot out of it, and very appreciative. So thank you again, Joanne, for that. Everybody who joined us.
Welcome.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. What a wonderful way to kick off January 2023 with this webinar series. And I look forward to seeing everybody next month, February 22nd. We have Dr. Michael Barnes with Foundry Treatment Center coming to talk about families, trauma, and addiction. So please keep an eye out for that registration link. And one last time, I can't tell you how grateful I am for all of you and for keeping this webinar so interesting and so amazing. So have a wonderful month. We'll see you in February. Thanks, Joanne.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.